Welcome to the Great American Collectibles Show, brought to you each week by the National Sports Collectors Convention. Join us every Wednesday evening at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and get the latest news from the greatest experts in the sports collectibles world. You can watch us on the Great American Collectibles Facebook page, as well as YouTube, or you can listen to us on Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, or any of your favorite podcast platforms. And now your hosts, award-winning sports collectibles author Tom Zappola and Boston sports media personality John Mallory.
And this is the Great American Collectibles Show. I'm your host, John Mallory. Yes, I'm your host, John Mallory. There is no Zap today. But we are not a rudderless ship, as I like to say. We have Chrissy Cunningham at the controls, although we're all remote today. So we're all feeling a little bit lonely, a little bit weird. But this is the Great American Collectibles Show, heard and seen on all your favorite podcast platforms and Facebook and Spotify and all those great things. You can find us anywhere. And this is the kind of like the New Year's edition, sort of saying goodbye to 2024, saying hello to 2025. The show is airing on New Year's Day. So hopefully, like me, you've gotten over your hangover and you're feeling good and getting ready for a great 2025. And joining me, listen, I couldn't think of a better guy to join me on this kind of flying solo mission on the Great American Collectibles Show than the one, the only, the man, the myth, and the true legend. He's Joe Tomasulo from Goldin Auctions. He's one of the great people, one of the great professionals in the hobby. And we're going to throw it around a little bit. Joe, welcome, and hope you had a great Christmas and Happy New Year, buddy.
Good morning, John, and Happy New Year to you. And unlike you, I am not hungover.
But you are wearing a hat, and that's good.
Yes, I got my secretariat hat.
That's beautiful. That's a good hat. We're going to throw it around as we were talking before the show, Joe, a little bit. But we do want to tap into, we're going to do that in a second, your vintage auction. It's a huge auction coming up on January the 25th. So, but first, give me a little bit of your reflections on 2024 in the hobby, things that stuck out for you. I know you made a career transition yourself during the year, but in the hobby in general, yourself, and just what you thought about what happened as kind of a prelude to 2025.
Yeah, one of the things to me that sticks out big time, and it's a good thing for our hobby. We've gone the last 3-4 years post-COVID, we've gone through a lot of economic issues, inflation, large immigration. There's just been so many issues that have hurt people from a financial perspective. And look, the hobby has held its own. I mean, you would think that, and it's not that it was a financial crisis, but things were tough. John, we all go to the supermarket, we see prices, we have to pay our bills. And in lieu of it all, the hobby has held firm. I'll use a tennis term, it's held serve.
Yeah.
It really has.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel the same way, but yeah, is there some softness across certain levels? Absolutely. But even when the stock market is strong, there's softness in certain types of commodities, investment areas. That holds true for everything. So I'm very excited and pretty much I'm happy about how the hobby has held its own with, prices not crashing through the floor. Yeah, maybe some stuff's down 5-10%, but I don't see 30, 40, 50% crashes, drops in good stuff. And certain items are still rising in value. Right. And that's typically the rare stuff.
Yeah. And don't you think, though, putting aside the numbers, economic numbers, what have you, don't you think that I think interest has risen? I think interest in the hobby, whether it's modern, whether it's vintage, whether it's cards, whether it's memorabilia, just in doing this show, a couple times a month, interest in this area has grown. Maybe it's because people are seeing these high-priced items on some news shows. Maybe it's because the interest in sports is always there. But what do you think about that? I think the interest in what we're doing and in this business/hobby has grown.
I agree, John, and I think it will continue to grow because unlike holding a piece of paper that says I have 100 shares in Microsoft or
Right.
Apple or,
Right.
yeah, on paper, you may be lucrative, but in the hobby, this is a passion for people that love, whether it's baseball, football, soccer, basketball, hockey, you name it. You get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
You get to collect your heroes.
Right.
And while you're collecting your heroes, your financial portfolio may be climbing the ladder. So I love that concept. And when some of the things I own do drop in value or experience that softness, it was my old dear friend, God rest his soul, Wayne Varner used to say, go sideways. Just kind of stays put.
So kind of ride it out a little bit. Yeah.
It's okay because don't forget, I'm still holding on to and collecting those pieces that give me joy.
That's right.
Whether I sell them or not.
And this has been kind of a running theme when you've been on the show, Joe, and also with many of our other guests. And that is that I want to get into this a little bit, and we will get. I definitely want to talk about the vintage auction coming up. But you got me. See, you're the kind of guest you get me up on a tangent. That's how I do interviews. I have, as you know, I made like 47 topics here, because I always over prepare. But the best part of conversations is when you go off from what the guest is saying. And, I think you hit on something there. And I think that this hobby is becoming much more diverse as well in terms of age groups. We go back and forth with Zap all the time, modern versus vintage. He loves to make that thing. But I really think that the line is getting a little more blurred in terms of people who are interested in it. I think what maybe younger, if you want to call younger or newer collectors who are drawn into the hobby from what they see on the headlines of today are getting more and more interested in the Babe Ruths,
and
the
I'm
Luke
gonna
Garretts.
I'm gonna stop you there for a second, John, and
do that.
give you it's not a gaff moment. Sorry, Tom Z, but I did the Valley Ford show for Goldin. Not the Valley Ford, the Philly show. Which was in Oaks, Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. Mid-December. And here's what was exciting to me. Yeah, we got some nice consignments, but I got to tell you, a bunch of kids, and I mean, ages 9 to 12, give or take, came up to the stand. We had some great Ruth cards out, Ty Cobb, Shoeless Joe Jackson. And I'm seeing 10-year-old kids pointing to Ruth and Jackson cards saying, they're with their moms or dad. Look, Dad, look, Mom, that's a Shoeless Joe card. That's a Ruth card. Stop right there. Because the next person that tells me in 20 years people won't know who Babe Ruth is, they better think again. And will the collecting part of Ruth and Jackson die off? And not a chance. Not a snowball's chance in hell. Because I'm seeing it at shows where when kids see these high-end cards, their faces light up like a Christmas tree. There's a glow. And that eventually could lead into them when they grow up and get good jobs and are financially secure. Maybe they'll want to build a portfolio of great vintage players.
I think you're right.
That to me is a huge positive. That I've noticed over the last several shows.
Our guest today on the Great American Collectibles Show is Joe Tomasulo from Goldin Auctions. Joe, what's the lingering allure and attraction? And we'll get into a couple players, but you brought up Babe Ruth. What's the lingering allure and attraction of this guy? I mean, I get it when he was around. He was a gregarious guy, bigger than life. But I mean, we're decades away now. We're almost 100 years away. We're over 100 years away, from his heyday. What's the eternal legacy and lasting impact of Babe Ruth?
Well, I'm going to generalize it first. What's the allure of Abraham Lincoln or John Hancock or George Washington? Or
Right.
they were so iconic in their day. It just transcends time.
Yeah.
I mean, Babe Ruth revolutionized baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, his home run totals out-homered almost every team of the day.
I know.
Which to me is one of the most remarkable achievements in baseball history.
Yeah.
I mean, he was belting 50 to 60 home runs when teams were hitting 50 to 60 home runs.
Exactly.
So it's also his elaborate personality, his overall persona. I just did a write-up on a Babe Ruth card, and I was talking about that. He was larger than life, to use your words, John.
Yeah.
So if you take his diamond skills, his personality, and the impact he had on America's favorite pastime, we'll call it the trifecta. It transcends time. Babe Ruth will never die.
Right.
Marilyn Monroe,
Right.
Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
Right. Frank Sinatra. I mean,
and Ruth
when
did
we're
that.
long and gone, John.
Yeah. Yeah.
These names will continue to live strong.
Ruth went, and you said it just now, Ruth went beyond the bounds of baseball, beyond the bounds of sports. And you're using Abraham Lincoln, Marilyn Monroe, Frank Sinatra. And that's what Babe Ruth was. He was beyond the game, right?
You can argue, John, and again, this is all hearsay, it's only opinion, but you can argue that the three greatest names in American history, and you can put them in any order, are Lincoln, Washington, and Ruth. I mean, Ruth is global. He's not just Americana.
Right.
He is global. So there's that gray area with Ruth, like you said, John, it's almost like a geometrical algebraic equation, undefined.
Right.
It's almost hard to put your finger on it, but I try not and speculate on that, and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I just enjoy Babe Ruth. And one of your topics, John, if you don't mind me taking a stepping stone.
It's all you, buddy. Yeah.
Into one of the things we're going to touch upon.
Listen, you're all I got today, so whatever you want to do.
My idols, my heroes. I always had a fascination for supernatural achievements.
Okay.
Athletes that just, like you said, John, that go beyond the perimeter or the boundary of what a human athlete should or is supposed to achieve.
Yep.
Hence Babe Ruth. And my hat, even though he was an animal, one of the greatest athletes of all time, Secretariat.
Unbelievable.
Because he could do things on a racetrack that weren't supposed to be possible.
Yeah.
I love Bobby Orr.
Yeah.
Obviously Gretzky, Ovechkin, Gordie Howe, Orr's numbers, goals-wise, assists, points, aren't even close. But what Bobby Orr did on a hockey rink, peak value, no other hockey player could do.
Yeah, and Joe, first of all, I'm happy you picked a Boston guy as a New York guy. I appreciate that. I'm
skate with Bobby.
I'm going to be I'll be 60 this coming year. And so I really only caught the tail end of Bobby Orr. I didn't see the heyday of Bobby Orr. But, when people interview Wayne Gretzky, he says Bobby Orr. You know what I mean? And what you're talking about really, really what you're talking about are game changers, right?
One of my great
Took the game
stories.
from one place to another. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, John, oh God, I don't even remember how old I was. I was at a local Brooklyn bar,
Yeah.
and I couldn't believe who walked in. It was me and a couple of my friends. The great Mr. Ranger Hall of Fame winger, Rod Gilbert.
Oh,
Rod
great.
Gilbert.
Yeah.
Walked in,
Yeah.
introduced myself. He sat down and had some beers with us.
Oh my
It was,
God.
it was amazing.
So how old would you have been then?
I was in my, I would say, late 20s to 30. I can't
Crazy.
even remember exactly how old I
So
was.
he came in and he just sits down with you guys.
Yeah, I
That's
actually,
awesome.
yeah, and he had some beers with us, and
Wow.
I eventually came around to asking him who he thought was the greatest hockey player ever. And I expected him to say Gretzky.
Right.
And he grabs my forearm and he goes, Joe, nobody could skate with Bobby Orr.
Yeah.
Now, I know
Yeah.
he doesn't have the all-time, points.
Well, he only played 10
Big
years.
is
So yeah.
10
Yeah.
years. But if you want to talk about who was the best player at a given moment
Yeah.
in a hockey rink, it was Bobby Orr.
Well, Norris Trophy and led the league in scoring. I mean, that's right. Like both ends of the game.
Yeah, and I
He
think
was the best in the band. One year, he won every trophy. You know? Yeah.
to put it in perspective, John, one of the most underestimated and significant hockey statistics is your plus minus goals on the ice.
Sure.
Bobby Orr still holds the record in the 70-71 season with a plus 124, which is beyond staggering. Gretzky's best was 100.
Yeah.
In a single season.
Right.
So that goes to show you.
And you know that, just being a Yankee fan, you've seen so many iconic players as a Yankee fan. But here in Boston, obviously we've been lucky here in Boston too. We have Ted Williams, we have Tom Brady, David Ortiz has staked his claim as one of the great clutch hitters. Yaz was my favorite. Larry Bird, Bill Russ, and we can go along the list. There's something royal about Bobby Orr. There's this epic, there's a myth, I want to say a mythical aspect to Bobby Orr, maybe because the injuries cut short his career, but he is still deified here. Like you talk about Babe Ruth, he's still, Orr is still alive. He's an absolute saint, an absolute god here in New England.
He's a great individual, too.
And a great man. Yeah.
A great man.
Yeah.
He once lost one of his gloves behind his own net, John. And by the way, I'm a frustrated Ranger fan. Bobby, I saw Orr peak value. I started watching hockey in 70, 71.
Yeah.
And he just decimated my Rangers. Yeah. And it was like Jordan. I'm a Knick fan.
Yeah.
But as much as I was frustrated with Jordan, I respected him.
Of course.
And Orr dropped his glove, and instead of getting off the ice, all he did was, in an unassisted manner, skate from behind his net through 5 helpless Ranger defenders and scored an unassisted goal without passing the puck.
I've seen that clip. I mean, the way he rushed up and down the ice, and there was a respect factor, because I guess a lot of people could have hit him, but I think there was a respect factor among opponents with Bobby Orr too. Plus, he had some brutes that did his dirty work over the course of his Bruins career. But nobody skated up and down the ice. He was so fast, and he played with reckless abandon.
Fast and elusive. Yeah.
And that's
I can never picture Orr wearing a helmet in today's game.
Oh, I know, right? I know.
It's crazy.
It's so great.
Another thing Rod Gilbert told me, he felt if Orr was a winger or a center, he would have scored 100 goals in a season.
Yeah.
He told me he would have been unstoppable.
Yeah. Yeah. We got a couple minutes left in this segment. Now, second segment, by the way, with Joe Tomasulo, we're going to talk about your auction coming up at the end of January, vintage auction. We're going to get into that deeply. But you got me off on a tangent here with these great players. So if you would, let's stay in hockey, because we don't talk a lot of hockey on this show. Who were your favorite, New York Rangers growing up and even into adulthood?
Love Jean Rattel.
He came over here later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. who always, what was it called? The Lady Bing Trophy?
Yeah, Lady Bing.
For the least penalty minutes.
Yeah.
But Vic Hatfield,
Yeah.
who's the first Ranger to score 50 goals.
Yep.
Brad Park, great defenseman.
Loved him here too. Yeah.
And of course, the later years, Messier, Leach, and Richter.
Yeah. Oh man.
Messier.
Yeah.
Messier is very special.
Listen, that's a dude that said it and then did it, right?
A la Joe Namath.
He said it and he did it. All right, we're going to take a break here. We're talking to Joe Tomasulo from Goldin Auctions, John Mallory flying solo here on the Great American Collectibles Show as our friend Tom Zappala flies through the air, little snowbird that he is, down to Florida. We're going to take a break. We're going to be right back and talk about the vintage auction coming up with Goldin right after this.
Since 1996, Brian Drent and the staff at Denver's Mile High Card Company have led the charge in the collectibles hobby. Mile High is a full-service dealer specializing in buying and selling cards and offers a competitive consignment program for all collectors. Whether it be their computerized want list service, appraisals, or auction services, Mile High has it all. If you've been searching for a company with a selection of high-grade vintage 1888 to 1970 baseball cards and memorabilia that shares your passion, aim high, Mile High. Go to milehighcardco.com or call 303-840-2784 for more information.
For more than 30 years, Robert Edward Auctions has been the industry leader when it comes to helping you realize the most money for your baseball cards and sports memorabilia. In addition to their unparalleled reputation for honesty and integrity, they reach the largest number of bidders in the business and offer lower seller's fees, as well as generous cash advances up front on your valuable material. Contact them today at 908-226-9900. That's 908-226-9900 or at robertedwardauction.com.
Hi, this is Dan from Memory Lane Auctions, here to remind you that the renowned Memory Lane Collectibles Company has served as a beacon of light to the collecting community for the past several decades. Indeed, folks, it has been our utmost privilege and pleasure to provide the most enthusiastic collectors with an abundance of the finest sports cards and memorabilia for America's most coveted sports personalities via our world-class auctions. Whether you choose either a private sale transaction or the auction route, Memory Lane cordially invites you to reach out to us to maximize the value of your prized possessions. Also, it is not just sales that we pride ourselves on being the best of the rest, because if you are seeking a particular keepsake for your esteemed gathering, we will be relentless in our quest to find that special piece to fulfill your collecting dreams. So no time to wait. Reach out to us today for the purposes of capitalizing on our unparalleled marketing capabilities. Simply pick up the phone and dial 877-606-5263. That's 877-606-LANE, or find us on the World Wide Web at www.memorylaneinc.com. Now is the time for your valued consignment to ultimately become another one of Memory Lane's record-setting prices.
This is Brian Drent, president of Mile High Card Company. Is your sports card and memorabilia collection properly insured? For easily replaced personal property, homeowners insurance is all most people need. But for prized possessions that you may have spent a lifetime collecting, it doesn't go nearly far enough. Collectibles Insurance Services has been insuring for over 50 years. They offer a full range of protection and a $0 deductible at an affordable rate with no appraisals required. I know because they insure my collection. If you have a minute, go to collectinsure.com and learn more about insuring your personal card or memorabilia collection.
How would you like to own the bat that was used by your favorite player when he hit that towering home run or game-winning base hit? Now look no further than JT Sports, specializing in the sale and authentication of professional game-used bats. As the official authenticators of professional model game-used bats for PSA DNA, JT Sports will guarantee the authenticity of any bat purchased from them. JT Sports also buys and sells game-worn uniforms, gloves, and baseball equipment. The unique quality of the collectible is what JT Sports is all about. Give them a call at 609-487-8003 or check them out at GameUseBats.com.
And we are back here on the Great American Collectibles Show. My guest, as we sort of have a little look back on 2024, look ahead to 2025 show here on New Year's Day. We hope everyone out there had a great holiday season and a great New Year's, and that you're recovering from whatever you did last night. I'm okay. I'm okay now. But this morning, I felt like Rodney Dangerfield. Well, I'm okay now, but this morning it was a rough time. But Joe's with us. We're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to get off the collectible a little bit, talk about Joe's, life growing up, some of the things he's done, a lot about collectibles, clearly. We had a nice chat in our first segment about some great players growing up and legends of the game. But Joe, let's dive into it. You have a big auction coming up. Is it the 25th that the auction begins?
Yeah, it starts January 25th. And ends Saturday, February 15th.
And it's the vintage auction, Goldin Auctions. All right, so just give me an overview, and then we'll get into some of the details as to what people can find in this auction when it hits.
Sure. I mean, we're looking at roughly 1,000 lots. I think it's 1,050 to 1,100 lots.
Yep.
We have some great highlight items in this auction, John. Just right out of the gate, lot number one, we got speaking of Babe Ruth, we have a 1915 Red Sox postcard, which is the true first card of Babe Ruth in a Major League uniform. Now, you have the 14 Baltimore News Ruth. He's a minor leaguer.
Yeah.
He's wearing a Baltimore Terrapin uniform.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't qualify as a rookie card. It's his first professional card.
Right, because he wasn't in the major leagues.
And then you got the 1916 M101 Ruth rookie, which is his first major league full card, where just Ruth occupies the card, solo pose.
Okay.
And we have one of those as lot number two.
All right, so get back to the 19. So this is a postcard.
It's a 1915 postcard. There's less than 20 known.
Yep.
It's very scarce. This one is a PSA 3, and Ruth is situated along the top row. If memory serves me right, he's on the right side.
Yeah.
And, we're expecting this to fall in the 2 to 250 K range.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. It's just a great piece of history.
What's the genesis of this, Joe? Do you have background on it, like where it came from and things like that?
No.
Okay.
I mean, this has been in a few collectors' hands.
Yep.
It's like an Olympic baton. It's been passed along. And, but again, I think I'm trying to remember if it came out for public auction. Maybe once. It's traded private hands a couple of times.
Yep.
But this is exciting.
Well, it's a draw. I mean, like you said, it's the
6.
first photo of Babe Ruth in a major league uniform.
Correct.
Crazy.
And the last one that came out, REA sold an authentic for, I believe, 6 figures.
Really?
And before that, the highest graded one sold for close to 600,000.
Yep.
In a public auction. So,
wow.
I'm really excited about the attention this is going to grab.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked a little bit in our first segment about Babe Ruth, and this is 10 times that, because, and then you can speak to this. Whenever it's a first, right? The first photo of Babe Ruth in a major league uniform. Whenever it's that kind of landmark thing, that ups the interest and you hope also the value, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the history is crazy because Ruth won 18 games. 1915 was his first full year. He threw a couple of games in late July, August in 14. He got his feet wet.
Yeah.
Little on a major league mound, but then he was sent right back down to the minors. So Ruth won 18 games and he didn't pitch an inning in the World Series. The Red Sox had a great staff. Couple of names that come to mind: Herb Pennock, Ernie Shaw.
Yeah.
And those guys pretty much towed the line in the series. Ruth did get one pinch hit at bat in the series. I think he grounded out, if memory serves me right. But one plate appearance, and he started making his mark the following year, starting his 29 2/3 consecutive scoreless streak.
Jesus,
in
Joe,
1916.
you think about it. I'm not the first one to bring this up. Obviously, it's been documented on so many videos and documentaries and things like that. You think about how the course of baseball history changed for the Red Sox and the Yankees with Ruth. I mean, you think about how, because the Red Sox were an early dynasty in those years, in those teens, and I mean, and I know you're familiar with it. It just changed everything in the game.
No, Nanette. Harry Frazee. Yeah.
Come on.
He sold out Beantown
It's just
for a
unbelievable.
Broadway show. Isn't that amazing?
It's just incredible, and obviously we have dumb owners still today in sports, but when you look back on something like that, right? I mean, this guy makes like Jerry Jones look like a genius, It's like it's crazy. It's crazy to think. What else stands out for you in this auction?
Lot number 3. So after lot 2, which is the standard Babe Ruth rookie.
Yep.
Not rare, but definitely valuable.
Yep.
We have an 1893 Pfeiffer and Becker Cy Young cabinet from his own personal collection. It has the same image of Young that was used for his iconic Just So tobacco card.
Okay.
Issued the same year, for which there's only one known.
Yeah.
And I do know the collector,
Yeah.
the owner. This one is signed twice by Cy Young.
Really?
So what he did was he signed Cy Young across his Cleveland Spider uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland Spiders, so
Cleveland
funny.
Spiders, yeah.
Yeah. And then on the bottom border, he wrote Cy. And it comes with the original mailing envelope that he put it in to send. He obviously mailed it to a collector as a gift.
Wow.
And he signed it for him. And the mailing envelope says Cy Young in the return address section. So this isn't a twofer, it's a threefer. You
This
get
is like,
three Young signatures for the price.
yeah. This is a major artifact. This is a major piece of baseball history.
This is one of a kind.
Yeah.
And it belongs in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
It really does.
So you should win it, John, and then donate it.
Yeah, I plan on doing that. I'm not Zap. I don't have money falling out of my pockets. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we know Tom has that hidden stash.
Exactly. I hope he loses it all in Florida somewhere.
Right. And by the way, I have to jump in with another one.
Sure. Anything you want.
To me, as iconic as he is, the immortal Joe DiMaggio.
Yep.
And this is where I can roam free, because Tom Zapp thinks DiMaggio is so overrated. And Tom, with all due respect to our dear friend, is 150% off base.
He's wrong as hell.
Let's put it this way. Anyone who hits 363 homers and only strikes out 369 times, that says it all. It's one of the most amazing statistics in baseball history.
Yeah.
And we have his true rookie card in a PSA 6.5 holder, only one graded higher.
Yeah.
His 1936 worldwide gum. And John, we can get back into that whole Baltimore News minor league card.
Sure.
DiMaggio has his 34-35 Z-Nuts when he played for the San Francisco Seals in the Pacific Coast League, but that's a minor league card.
Yeah.
His 36 worldwide gum pictures him as a New York Yankee, 1936.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the tougher rookie cards in the hobby to obtain.
Yeah.
A low-end crease-ridden PSA 1 sold a couple of years ago for $40,000.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm expecting a large six-figure number on this card.
Yeah. I mean, Cy Young, Joe DiMaggio, too. I mean, Cy Young, if for no other reason, they still named the damn award after him. So he has eternal. We're talking with Joe Tomasulo, by the way, from Goldin Auctions. We're talking about the vintage auction, which begins January 25th. The website, Joe?
Goldin.com.
Goldin.com. You can check that out. It's tremendous lots there. We're getting into a few of them here. Let's talk about DiMaggio a little bit. I have a little bit of a love for DiMaggio. My dad, you'll like to hear this, was a New York Yankee fan. My dad was an Italian kid.
Oh my God! How did you wind up a
I found
Red
my
Sox
own.
fan?
I don't know, but I wish he had forced me to be a Yankee fan because my childhood years would have been a lot more happy, as opposed to being a Red Sox fan with all of the angst and pain that I went through. But he told me a lot about DiMaggio. He was an Italian kid, born in 28. So, I mean, he saw DiMaggio when he was in his formative years. And not only that, but I remember the baseball documentary Ken Burns did. And Bob Costas told a story about talking with his dad's friends. And he said, he threw out Mantle and Mays at people of his era. And they said, kid, you never saw the best there ever was. You never saw DiMaggio.
John, I'm glad you said that because my father was a diehard New York Giants fan.
Okay.
Before he went to the Korean War, after the Korean War.
Yep.
And obviously his idol when he got back from the Korean War was Willie Mays.
Yep.
Until his dying day, my dad insisted that Willie Mays wasn't even close to Joe DiMaggio as a ball player.
I think
which is a very, very large statement for someone who hated the Dodgers and Yankees.
Right.
Everything about them.
Right.
But so obviously Mays could do it all. One of the top, if not the top 5-tool player of all time.
Oh yeah.
But he just couldn't. My father always insisted DiMaggio was just such a far superior hitter. He didn't swing and miss. He didn't miss the baseball.
Yeah. And I think Joe, with a guy like DiMaggio, because he wasn't as vociferous as Babe Ruth. He was very well known. Obviously, married Marilyn Monroe and everything. Mr. Coffee later on down the line. Yeah. But he did it in a quiet elegance. And I think with him, Joe, really, you kind of had to see him, right? And that's why these older guys that saw him play, I put a lot of stock in that. You had to see DiMaggio play, day in and day out.
The Yankees were once winning big, 9 or 10-1. It was like the top of the ninth.
Yeah.
And someone hit a line drive into the alley. DiMaggio almost killed himself diving to try and catch the ball.
Yeah.
And game was over, basically.
Yeah. Yep.
After the game, the reporters corralled him in the clubhouse. And they wanted to know. It was near the end of the year. The Yankees had clinched the pennant. You're going to the World Series. Why, in God's name, would you risk breaking a shoulder, a leg, an ankle, an arm in a game that was over when you've clinched the pennant? And in classic DiMaggio style, his response was, there are people in those stands today that are seeing me for the first time.
Yeah.
And first impressions are lasting impressions.
Yeah.
I play 150%, 24/7.
No,
and I never want to give anyone
the
wrong impression of what Joe DiMaggio is about.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was no load management then, right? There was no, you sit out, we're going to rest him, we're going to sit out, but that's, and it's kind of becoming a running theme of the show, as some of these people are talking about, is the bigger than life aspect of it, that mythical, legendary aspect of it. And DiMaggio fits that mold completely.
Oh, there's that gray area, that intangible, again, undefined.
I know.
You can't even put your finger on it, John.
You can't. Because you don't have to be, it's more than just being a great ball player. There's just something beyond the field. About
so what I say, sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah, that's it. That's
right.
It. Yeah, we got about 3-4 minutes in this segment, actually about 5 or 6. So we have plenty of time. I want you to stay on the auction because it's a big one coming up. I mean, you've already mentioned 3 items that to me are like true baseball history. Hey, let's get Cy Young just for a second before we move on. Where is Cy Young in the hobby? Is he in the upper echelon with Ruth and Gehrig and Cobb? Or
oh yeah,
you don't hear his name as much as those guys.
His collectibles, his tobacco cards, candy cards, any playing day memorabilia, big time.
Yeah.
One of his great pieces in my mind is the opening. There's only a handful of them known. Game 1 of the 1903 inaugural World Series. Mm-hmm. Cy Young started.
Yeah.
So if you get a scored program from that game, strong 6 figures plus.
Oh yeah, I bet. I'll bet.
That's
What
a
el-
great Cy Young collectible.
What kind I know, obviously, you've already mentioned, Babe Ruth, Cy Young, Joe DiMaggio. It's as clear as going to be a great auction. Is there a wow item for you? Maybe that's something that isn't in, the first few lots, but that was really unique when you saw it come across?
You know what? It's not, well, when I say it's not super value, it's valuable. It's
Sure.
probably 30, 40,000,
Yeah.
but it's not a six-figure piece.
Right.
It should be.
Mm-hmm.
One of our early lots is a 1906 Ty Cobb, or it's a Detroit Tigers team postcard with the first major league appearance of Ty Cobb. There's 19 portrait poses.
Yeah.
It's a sporting life postcard.
Yeah.
Ty Cobb is situated bottom row, second from the right. And it's an image where I even reached out to Henry Yee from PSA,
Yep.
the foremost photo authenticator. Henry's the best. And that image, the photographer's unknown. That's how rare it is.
Yep.
And that is Ty Cobb's first appearance on a card. All his postcards, Wolverine, Deesh, H.M. Taylor, his Sporting Life cabinet are all from 1907.
Yeah.
So again, we get back into this situation, Babe Ruth's 15 Red Sox postcard.
Yeah. First.
Which is now potentially 200,000 to 300,000 in a 3 grade. This Cobb postcard is graded a 4.5 by SGC, and there's only 9 other known to exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this, to me, is the sleeper in the auction.
Question for you, and I know you weren't around to see Ty Cobb play. Unlike Zap, would Ty Cobb's reputation, surliness, angry attitude, has that hurt him at all in the marketplace for collectibles?
Okay, great question, John. It hasn't, shockingly.
Yeah.
You know who I think it's hurt a little? Cap Anson.
Okay.
I mean, Cap Anson had that racism thing going on,
Yep.
as we know, and Anson's stuff is valuable, but I think it suppressed him at some level.
Yep.
I don't think it's hurt Cobb, but I will say this. Had he been a Christian gentleman like Christy Mathewson,
right,
or, Walter Johnson, Mathewson, these guys were they transcended the sport.
Right.
They personified what baseball should be like. And they were the idols of millions of young American, youth who worship these guys.
Yeah.
I think for whatever Cobb is, and he's up there, maybe potentially he could have been a little more.
Yeah.
Maybe something was left on the table.
I think because, and he was a different type of ball player than Babe Ruth, obviously. And he didn't like the way Babe Ruth played. He hated the home run, but he was as good a ball player as anyone who ever played. No question. You could make a case for him being the greatest player of all time.
Well, the greatest 5-tool players, you can put Willie Mays and Cobb's name in a hat and pick one.
I think what his attitude and his personality probably kept him from being is a like you said, a beloved, legendary figure like Babe Ruth is, who goes beyond baseball. You know what I mean? And he's good enough to have been in that category. But I think if it hurt anything, it's probably his place maybe in the hearts and minds of baseball fans.
Right. Ruth just had that swagger.
Yeah, he was everyone loved the guy.
You can't emulate that.
You cannot.
That's why he's so indelible. He just the way he carried himself, Cobb didn't have that.
Right. Joe, a couple of these things we just talked about for the Goldin, for the vintage auction coming up on January 25th. Postcards, to me, just again, doing the show, doing my research, they've become huge in the hobby.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so here's the funny thing. we collect baseball cards, okay, or sports cards. Card, some type of thicker stock than a piece of loose leaf or a magazine page.
Sure.
Okay. Which is why I'm not a fan of calling like magazine premiums cards. They have ACC designations like M101-1s, 2s, but they're not a card per se. They're not cardboard. And,
Right.
Which to me is a stock thing. So postcards have always been undervalued, but not anymore.
Right.
The other thing that hurt them, they're not part of a mainstream issue. They're postcards. They're not part of a set, typically.
Right.
Again, for the most part, some are.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a bunch of nice postcards coming up in this auction.
Mhm.
We have 2 of his rookies,
Yep.
batting Deesh and an H.M. Taylor. And we have a very scarce M101-3, 1913, which has a beautiful pastel portrait image card.
Yep.
That was part of a 6-card set. That was a set. But for the most part, a lot of postcards aren't mainstream sets, and I think that hurts them a little.
Gotcha.
But they're cards, and believe me, they are valuable.
I'm sure.
If you get the right plays, Ruth, Cobb, Matheson, they're making their mark in the hobby, John.
And they give it that more personal touch than a card does as well. We are talking with Joe Tomasulo from Goldin Auctions. We're going to take a break here on the Great American Collectibles Show, and we'll be right back to finish up and jump around a little bit. We're going to get into This Is Your Life with Joe Tomasulo. Get more into the youthful and that, he's a coach. The dude's like a renaissance man of baseball. We're going to come back and delve into that a little bit right here on the Great American Collectibles Show.
Pristine Auction is a family-owned and operated online auction specializing in autographed memorabilia, sports cards, coins, art, and collectibles. Since their founding in 2010, they've grown to 2 facilities in Phoenix, Arizona, totaling over 60,000 square feet. Jared Cavalier and an incredible staff of over 150 team members serve a very large customer base and enjoy every minute of it. By working with leading authentication companies, Pristine ensures all items are 100% authentic. In addition, third-party authenticators regularly travel to Pristine Auction to provide authentication services on site. Pristine Auction strives to operate its business in a way that's honoring to God, their families, and their customers. With a strong focus on speed, quality, and premier customer service, their mission is to be the leading online auction for every level of collector and fan. Pristine also works for Hope Sports and Identity Hoops International, traveling to Mexico to build houses for the less fortunate. Pristine Auction offers several online auction formats with thousands of auctions ending each day. For more information, go to pristineauction.com. That's Pristine Auction, the best in the business.
If you are a discerning collector interested in owning the most important pieces in the hobby, look no further than Leland's Auctions. The original sports auction and appraisal house, Leland's was established in 1985 by legendary Pioneer founder Joshua Leland Evans. And today, President Mike Hefner carries on the tradition. From the Tom Brady card and memorabilia collection to the famed Boston Garden auction to high-end card auctions from every major sport, Leland's has always maintained the highest standards. Go to Lelands.com and get your bid in. That's Leland's, the hobby's leading sports auction house for 4 decades.
It's often been said that championships are won on the practice field, and world records come only to those willing to work harder than everybody else. Heritage Auctions is the world's largest collectibles auctioneer because we believe that becoming the best is only an invitation to the challenge of remaining the best. This requires the skills of the hobby's top experts, capable of identifying and maximizing value for our consigners. It requires the most visited website in the industry, courting a global audience of collectors over 1.5 million strong. It requires a dedicated press department that expands our global reach far beyond the entrenched hobby marketplace. It's hard work, but a simple premise. Present the finest collectibles to the largest population of potential buyers, and world records will come. We invite all listeners to put the unmatched power of Heritage Auctions to work for you. Auction evaluations are always free, and our commission-based fee structure ensures that our interests are always aligned. The highest possible price for your collectibles. There will always be new world records to chase, so let's chase them together. Visit our website at ha.com and request your no-obligation review today.
Hi, this is Dan from Memory Lane Auctions, here to remind you that the renowned Memory Lane Collectibles Company has served as a beacon of light to the collecting community for the past several decades. Indeed, folks, it has been our utmost privilege and pleasure to provide the most enthusiastic collectors with an abundance of the finest sports cards and memorabilia for America's most coveted sports personalities via our world-class auctions. Whether you choose either a private sale transaction or the auction route, Memory Lane cordially invites you to reach out to us to maximize the value of your prized possessions. Also, it is not just sales that we pride ourselves on being the best of the rest, because if you are seeking a particular keepsake for your esteemed gathering, we will be relentless in our quest to find that special piece to fulfill your collecting dreams. So no time to wait. Reach out to us today for the purposes of capitalizing on our unparalleled marketing capabilities. Simply pick up the phone and dial 877-606-5263. That's 877-606-LANE, or find us on the World Wide Web at www.memorylaneinc.com. Now is the time for your valued consignment to ultimately become another one of Memory Lane's record-setting prices.
Hey, I'm Mike Petroselli. If your company is looking for the best in marketing and promotional items, you'll hit a home run with Petroselli Marketing. With over 8,000 suppliers and 650,000 imprint-ready items, we can get your company the visibility it needs to get your maximum exposure. Whether it be office promotions, wearables, automotive, sports items, and everything in between, Petroselli Marketing can do it all. Our design staff will even work with you from concept to delivery and customize your products. At Petroselli Marketing Group, we will get your brand in front of your audience. Contact us at info@petrosellimkt.com or call us at 603-880-3202. That's Petroselli Marketing, where no dream is impossible.
So how does your company or organization do promotions? Imprinted products keeps your brand in front of your customers more than any other form of advertising. For the best on-time service and new ideas for your next project, give Petroselli Marketing Group a call at 603-880-3202 or email info@petrosellimkt.com. We are joined on the Great American Collectibles Show today by Joe Tomasulo, a legend in the hobby world, no question about it. He's a real legend, not a self-proclaimed legend like our friend Tom Zappola. And we talked a lot in our first two segments. We talked a little bit about some of the great legends of the game, got into the vintage auction coming up on January 25th. And I want to get back to that before we wrap it up, Joe, give you a few more items to talk about. But first, I want to talk a little bit about you, because I'm always fascinated when I'm on the show with you. And just where did it all start for you? Talk about, what drew you to sports, how it kind of transformed into collecting, and how, baseball especially has kind of remained your passion throughout your life.
I distinctly remember in 1971, I was born in 62.
Okay.
I didn't like baseball. I wasn't one of those kids that played t-ball. I never played ball.
Really?
Yep. I was 9 years old, just turned 9. And my next door neighbor, Greg Menifo, my best friend, we were watching TV in his basement. And Greg did like baseball. And he was a year younger than me. And he had the Met game on. And who do you think was pitching? George Thomas Seaver.
Oh, man.
And I'm sitting there. And I'm watching this game. Yeah. And I understood baseball. I knew what it was. I had a sense for it, but I didn't play it much at all.
Yeah.
Not at least organized ball up to that time. And Tom Seaver is pitching and Jerry Grody is behind the plate.
Yeah.
Or was it Duffy Dye? No, I think it was Grody.
Yeah.
Anyway, Grody's not moving his glove. Seaver's just hitting every spot, fastball, slider, curveball.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this guy pitch and I'm thinking to myself, how is he doing this?
Yeah.
He looks like God. He was just so, that day, so like many days, unhittable.
Yeah.
And it captivated me. It's almost like a light bulb went off. And I had such a fascination that day for what I witnessed, what I was watching. It totally turned my life around.
Isn't it amazing how it can do that? You know, so you would have been about how old then?
9 years old.
9 years old. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy how it can do that.
And obviously, Tom Seaver is my childhood and lifelong hero.
Yeah. So did you become a Mets fan first? Or did you go
I was
right
a
to
Met fan first.
You were. Okay.
So the funny thing is, John, I almost called you Tom. That would have been so insulting.
I'm going to take that as a compliment.
No, you can take it as an insult too. Tom's gonna give me hell for that one. But Seaver became my idol, got me into pitching.
Yeah.
The next year I asked my dad if I could go into organized ball. And my father was a great ball player.
Really?
Not good, great.
Really?
What a hitter. Oh my God, could my father hit?
No kidding.
At a professional level, yeah.
He played professional ball.
He didn't. But my father grew up around the corner from Mulberry Street, Chinatown, Little Italy, and he just didn't play enough organized ball.
Yeah.
But I mean, I could remember the first time watching my father swing a bat. The family went to a batting cage in Staten Island, and the machine was cranking it at 100 miles an hour. And everyone in the facility was embarrassing themselves.
Yeah.
So I had never seen my father swing a bat, and he steps into the cage, and I'm like, you sure you want to do this, Dad? And, you know, my father was my hero, of course.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to see my father embarrass himself.
Yeah.
So he literally stroked 25, 30 straight line drives.
I love that.
He didn't miss one pitch, and he made it look like he was sitting in a rocking chair.
Crazy.
It was crazy. And so I obviously questioned him, Dad, why didn't you pursue being a major league player? I couldn't hit a curveball, Joseph. I couldn't hit a curveball.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking to myself, nobody can hit a good curveball. I love when people say that. I can't hit a curveball. Who can hit a good curveball? So anyway, I was a Met fan even when the Mets traded Seaver to the Reds, the Midnight Massacre,
77.
June 15, 77.
Yeah.
I stayed a Met fan, followed Seaver and Cincy.
Yeah.
I used to load up on dimes. Remember Sports Phone, John?
Sure.
And there were pay phones. So when I was out playing ball, baseball, basketball, football, there was a pay phone by the schoolyard corner. And when Seaver was pitching, I would load up my pocket with dimes. It was 10 cents at the time.
Yeah.
And I would call Sports Phone every half inning to get the half inning updates. My friends thought I was a lunatic, which I probably was. So then the Mets got Seaver back, which was exhilarating to me.
Yeah, I remember that.
I was like on cloud nine.
Yeah.
I went to opening day 83. He threw 6 shutout innings. In typical fashion, did not get the win. Left in a scoreless game.
Yeah.
But the Mets left him unprotected.
I remember that.
Right. And John, can we share insider trading stuff here?
Sure.
Okay. I don't want to be hung out to dry for this.
Go for it.
For my insider trading friends in sports, I knew a lot of sports writers, good sports writers per se, and they had a lot of knowledge. Seaver wasn't incorrectly or erroneously, inadvertently left unprotected.
Is that right?
It was done for a reason.
Yeah.
He was still pitching very well.
Yeah.
The Mets knew someone was going to pick him up. They said they didn't believe someone would pick him up. Actually, the one guy who didn't, and he said because Seaver should always be a Met, was George Steinbrenner. The Yankees needed a good pitcher.
Yeah.
Yankees were always in the market for a good pitcher. They pressed George on picking him up.
Yeah.
He just felt it was wrong to take Seaver from the Mets.
The funny thing is he went to the White Sox.
Right.
That time. And the guy that caught his 300th win, which was Carlton Fisk.
Carlton Fisk.
Same thing happened here with him. You know, they mailed him his contract late. And they did that on purpose because they didn't want to pay him. You know?
So here's the inside story.
Yeah.
Davey Johnson was just hired as the Met manager.
Yeah.
I think he felt Seaver was going to be pursuing maybe a management job because he was getting close to his retirement.
Yeah, yeah.
He went to Cashin, allegedly, and basically said, get him out of here.
Yeah.
It allegedly was one of the provisions of him coming over. Yeah. So they had to do it in a manner that wouldn't incite a riot amongst Met fans.
We've got a couple minutes left, Joe, and I wanted you to mention the auction, Goldin.com, the vintage auction coming up January 25th. And you do coach baseball. Just real briefly on that. You still do that?
I coached on the field for years.
Yeah.
Now I just am a private instructor, and I teach kids, college professionals how to pitch.
Pitching. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. I love it. I just love that it's been a lifelong, love of the game for you since you saw Tom Seaver.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I owe it to Tom to pursue a vocation like that.
Yeah.
And I tell you, Seaver was such a special person. Johnny, I had at my father's memorial, I actually stole one of Johnny Bench's quotes about Seaver. Actually, it wasn't at my father's memorial. It was at a party where I addressed my father. Yeah. Seaver had already passed away.
Yeah.
And a reporter after Seaver sadly passed in 2020.
Yeah.
Asked Bench, who was one of his three great catches, Brody, Fisk, and Bench.
Yep.
And he said, how would you define Tom? And one of the great quotes you'll ever hear. For those who knew him, no words were necessary. For those who didn't, no words could ever be adequate.
I love that, man. I love it.
And that pretty much said it all. And that was my dad. And the second I heard that, it struck me, associated me with my relationship with my father. But Tom Seaver was very, very special. One of the top 10 pitchers of all time.
Hey, man, thank you for sharing that with us. I mean, I love this stuff. I love getting in the background of guys that do this for life. And you obviously have a passion for the game, the way you speak about it. And not just about the business end of it, but of the game itself and sports in general. And the funny thing, the sports moment that never happened, because Seaver ended up with the Red Sox in 1986. Could you have imagined Tom Seaver pitching for the Red Sox in the 86 series against the Mets?
He would have.
He got hurt. He hurt
his knee.
Yeah, yes. He got hurt. That would have been one of the great, however it worked out, it would have been one of the great moments of all time.
And I remember that, John. He was pitching against the Blue Jays, the last game of his major league career.
Yep.
He hurt his knee. He twisted his knee.
Yep.
And I always think Al Nipper got bombed in Game 4. Yeah. Remember Dykstra led off?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Did Dykstra led off with the home run?
Yeah.
Or was that off Oil Can Boyd?
I'm not sure. But I remember that, yeah. And the Red Sox had won the first two games. We're going to go on here. Red Sox won the first two games in New York, and then in Fenway, they lost the next two.
Oil Can lost 3. Dykstra led off with a homer. Yeah. In Game 4, Carter took Nipper deep twice.
Got it.
Tom Seaver would have started that game.
Yeah.
It would have not have been Al Nipper. And you never know. Picture, even though he was 40, 41 years old and aging, Seaver would have gotten up for that game and I still believe he would have pitched the gem if he was healthy.
I love it. Hey, Joe, listen, thank you so much for taking this mission with me today. I really wouldn't have rather had anybody do this. I appreciate it, man. We appreciate everything you bring, not only to the hobby, but to our show. I hope you had a great 2024 and Happy New Year, my friend.
John, I can't thank you enough for letting me kick off 2025.
100%. Happy New Year to everyone out there. Check out Goldin.com now, but especially January 25th.
And actually, John, it's Goldin.co.
Goldin. Let's get that right. Goldin.co. Check that out. Vintage auction coming up January 25th. It's going to be a great year for the hobby and hopefully a great year for the show. We want to thank everyone for tuning in 2024. We hope you stay with us in 2025. Best to our snowbird down in Florida, Tom Zappola. So long, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Happy New Year, Tom. John, I did it. I couldn't help myself.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.